the Duke of Normandy was the title given to the rulers of the Duchy of Normandy in northern France, a fief created in AD 911 by King Charles III the Simple of France for Rollo, a Scandinavian nobleman and leader of Northmen. In 1066 the reigning Duke, William the Bastard, conquered England, whereupon he became known as King William I the Conqueror of England. From then on, the Duke of Normandy and the King of England were usually the same man, until the King of France seized Normandy from King John in 1204. John's son Henry III renounced the ducal claim in the Treaty of Paris. Thereafter, the duchy formed an integral part of the French royal domain. The Valois kings of France started a tradition of granting the title to their heirs apparent, until this was supplanted by the title Dauphin. The title was granted 4 times between the French conquest of Normandy by Philip Augustus and the dissolution of the French monarchy in 1792. Rollo the Viking. A fiefdom of Normandy was created in 911 for the Viking leader Rollo. After participating in many Viking incursions along the Seine, culminating in the Siege of Paris in 886, Rollo was finally defeated by King Charles the Simple. With the Treaty of Street-Clair-sur-Epte, Rollo swore fealty to the French king, converted to Christianity and was baptized with the name Robert. Charles then granted Rollo territories around Rouen, which came to be called Normandy after the Northmen. Rollo and his immediate successors were styled as Counts of Normandy. Some later medieval sources refer to them by the title Duc, the Latin word from which the English word duke is derived. However, Rollo's great-grandson Richard II was the first to assuredly be styled Duke of Normandy. Although certain titles were used interchangeably during this period, the title of Duke was typically reserved for the highest rank of feudal nobility either those who owed homage and fealty directly to kings, or who were independent sovereigns. First Duke of Normandy, Viking HRLFR, HRLFR. ROLLO the DANE. Kning der Normannen or King of the Northmen. Also called Rolf the Walker because being so tall he preferred to go afoot rather than ride the little Norwegian horses. Originally a Norse Viking chief, he was noted for strength and martial prowess. Baptized Robert. c. 782 AD. During all this period the war with the Saxons continued. Pipin had compelled them to pay tribute, and besides forced them to receive missionaries, but they could neither bear to pay the one nor embrace the religion of the other, the pacific spirit of which was so contradictory to the human passions. Having massacred several of the missionaries, and committed several other outrages, they provoked Charlemagne to wage war against them, and so strenuously were they attached to liberty, that they held out against his power for 30 years. In one of these battles Witikind, the Saxon general, inflicted a severe defeat on the French, which Charlemagne cruelly revenged by the massacre of Verdun, where 4,500 of the principal Saxons were beheaded. At length Witikind, after being defeated with great slaughter in several battles, made his submission, and embraced Christianity. His followers were not equally tractable. They often revolted, and were not completely subdued until Charlemagne removed many thousand families of them, which he dispersed through Flanders and other countries. Some of the most resolute tribes retired into Scandinavia, carrying with them an implacable hatred of the dominion and religion of the French. The severe persecution of the Saxons by Charlemagne induced many of their bravest warriors to fly into Scandinavia. Their representation of the cruelties practiced on the worshippers of the god Ea stimulated their brethren of the north to prepare for revenge. And we have already seen that even in the reign of Charlemagne the northern shores of France were devastated by Scandinavian pirates. 911 AD. In 911 AD, Duke Belus of Aquitaine aligned in opposition to the Viking HRLFR of Normandy. A part of Viking chief HRLFR's army was camped on a hill called Mont Levis, north of the city of Chartres, with his other soldiers located on the plains surrounding Chartres. On July 20, 911 AD, the French allies commenced the battle against the Danes. The legend tells that the Danes were struck blind with panic, a condition assigned to heroic commander HRLFR unregistered trademark S descendants. On the basis of the contagious terror, the Danes fled the combat and were unpursued. By end of day 6,800 Danes lay dead on the field of battle. Duke Bliss was overdue in arriving at Chartres, and as a result was mocked by his victorious allies. As a way to redeem himself, Bliss accepted a challenge to confront the last of the Danes encamped atop of the Mont Levis. The challenge was completely lost when the Danes defeated Duke Bliss in the darkness of the night. The Northmen sounded their horns and created earth-shattering noises when rushing down from the mount and stormed the camp of Duke Bliss. Duke Bliss then fled and hid inside a drum of the Fuller unregistered trademark S workshop. In a popular French ballad of the Plantagenet era, Bliss was scorned for his cowardice. Rollo besieges Paris and Chartres. Following a victory near Chartres on August 26, 911 AD, King Charles of France decided to negotiate with Rollo. 923 AD. After an absolute blank of some years, we meet with an account of the appearance of Rollo, the most celebrated of the Norman chieftains. He everywhere defeated the French forces, seized on Rouen, which he converted into a place of arms, and struck King Charles of France with so much terror that he resolved to purchase peace on any conditions. The invasion of Rollo, in the reign of King Charles the Simple, was the last of their plundering expeditions by an agreement with that monarch, who was anxious to save his country from devastation, and to secure for himself an active body of partisans. King Charles sent a bishop as an ambassador to Rollo, offering to give him his daughter Gisela in marriage, and cede the province of Neustria to Rollo and his followers, provided that Rollo should become a Christian, acknowledge the King of France as his feudal sovereign, and aid in repelling any future invasions of the King unregistered trademark S country. This agreement is called the Treaty of Saint-Clair-sur-Epte. In exchange for the Vikings' loyalty, they were granted all the land between the River Epte in the sea, and the territory of Bretagne. Rollo, to whom religion was a matter of perfect indifference, converted to Christianity and was baptized with the name Robert. He assented to all the conditions, stipulated only that Bretagne should be ceded to him until the other province was cultivated. This was granted, the marriage soon afterwards took place, and Rollo paid homage to the crown. More like a conqueror than a vassal. King Charles invested Rollo with a defence of the lands that came to be called Normandy from a Nomania unregistered trademark or Northmen. The province of Neustria, and the hand of the King unregistered trademark S daughter were given to Rollo, who thenceforth took the title of Duke Robert I of Normandy. The remains of the Celtic Gauls, who had been cruelly oppressed by the Franks, gladly submitted to the equitable administration of Rollo, and the number of his subjects was continually increased by parties of the aboriginal natives, who sought, under a new master, relief from the oppression of their former conquerors. But the Normans were not so successful in obtaining the affections of the inhabitants of Bretagne, whom King Charles, unable to subdue himself, had transferred to his new allies. The weakness and incapacity of King Charles became every day more apparent to unregistered trademark. He allowed himself to be entirely governed by Huguenin, a man of low birth, hated by the nobility, and despised by the people. Robert of Neustria, brother of King Odo, appeared in arms against him. And King Charles, instead of levying an army, assembled a council, where he procured the excommunication of his opponents. 929 AD. After a slight struggle, Robert of Neustria was killed in battle, and his son, Hugh the Griata unregistered trademark, or the Abota unregistered trademark, though he might have obtained the crown himself, chose rather to bestow it on Rodolphe, Duke of Burgundy. Rodolphe gained over the nobles by lavish donations of the land which still belonged to the crown. King Charles was made a prisoner, and his queen Elgiva fled to the court of her brother Athelstan, King of England, accompanied by her son, a boy about 9 years old. The heroic Count Herbert of Vermandois, in order to procure good terms from Rodolphe by threatening him with the liberation of his rival, obtained possession of the person of the unhappy King Charles, under the pretense of undertaking his defense. But he detained him a prisoner at St. Quentin, and then at Cas-Saint-Thierry, and at Par Copyright Run, where King Charles died in 929 AD, poisoned, as it is said, by the Count of Vermandois. By this means the Count procured the county of Lane from the new sovereign. Count Herbert of Vermandois was hanged by order of King Louis IV unregistered trademark Outremer, who battled him for reallocation of the Count's titular holdings, on February 22, 943 AD at St. Quentin, Aisen, capital of the county of Vermandois. 935 AD Rodolphe did not long enjoy the crown, he survived the unhappy King Charles about 6 years, leaving no children. Rollo, the Conqueror of Normandy, died about 3 years before, leaving his son William, surnamed Long-Epée or Longsword, the heir both of his principality and his virtues. Duke Belus died in 935 AD, the same year his son and heir William III Towhead marries Lady Guiloc, daughter of Viking Rollo, Duke Robert I of Normandy. William the Conqueror. William the Conqueror added the Kingdom of England to his realm after the Norman conquest of 1066. This created a problematic situation wherein William and his descendants were king in England but a vassal to the king in France. Much of the contention which later arose around the title Duke of Normandy stemmed from this fundamentally irreconcilable situation. After the death of William the Conqueror, his eldest son, Robert Curthose, became Duke of Normandy while a younger son, William Rufus, became King of England. William II was succeeded in 1100 as King of England by another brother, William the Conqueror's youngest son, Henry I. When Henry deposed Robert in 1106 he claimed both titles, Duke of Normandy and King of England, uniting them once again. International contention. In 1204, King Philip II of France confiscated the Duchy of Normandy, held at that time by King John of England, and subsumed it into the Crown lands. Only the Channel Islands and Calais remained under John's control. In 1259, Henry III of England recognized the legality of French possession of mainland Normandy under the Treaty of Paris. English monarchs made subsequent attempts to reclaim their former continental possessions, particularly during the Hundred Years' War, and even claimed the throne of France itself. With the Treaty of Troyes in 1420, Henry V of England temporarily regained all territories formerly held by the Plantagenets, including Normandy, and was made regent and heir of France. His son, Henry VI inherited both kingdoms in 1422 and afterwards English monarchs included King of France among their list of titles. They also included the royal arms of France in their own armorial achievements, even after they had lost their French possessions after 1450. British claims to the throne of France and other French claims were not formally abandoned until 1801, when George III and Parliament, in the Act of Union, joined the Kingdom of Great Britain with the Kingdom of Ireland and used the opportunity to drop the obsolete claim on France. By that time, the French monarchy itself had been overthrown in 1792 with the establishment of the French Republic. The French Revolution also brought an end to the Duchy of Normandy as a political entity, as it was replaced by several departments. List of Dukes of Normandy. Kings of England indicated by an asterisk. Counts of Normandy Rollo 911 euro 927, William I Longsword 927 euro 942, Richard I the Fearless 942 euro 996. Early Dukes of Normandy Richard II the Good 996 euro 1027, Richard III 1027, Robert I the Magnificent 1027 euro 1035, William II the Conqueror 1035 euro 1087, Robert II Curthose 1087 euro 1106, William Rufus as Regent 1096 euro 1100, William Clito as Claimant 1106 euro 1134. Henry I Bialek 1106 euro 1135, William III Atheling. Stephen of Blois 1135 euro 1144, House of Plantagenet, Geoffrey Plantagenet 1144 euro 1150, Henry II 1150 euro 1189, Henry the Young King as Junior Duke 1170 euro 1183. Richard IV Lionheart 1189 euro 1199, John I Lackland 1199 euro 1216, lost mainland Normandy in 1204. Henry III 1216 euro 1259, renounced mainland Normandy and the ducal title by Treaty of Paris. Dukes of Normandy in the Kingdom of France in 1204. the King of France confiscated the Duchy of Normandy and subsumed it into the Crown lands of France. Thereafter, the ducal title was held by several French princes. In 1332, King Philip VI gave the duchy in appanage to his son John, who became king as John II in 1350. He in turn gave the duchy in appanage to his son Charles, who became king as Charles V in 1364. In 1465, Louis XI, under constraint, gave the duchy to his brother Charles de Valois, Duke of Berry. Charles was unable to hold the duchy and in 1466 it was again subsumed into the Crown lands and remained a permanent part of them. The title was conferred on a few junior members of the French royal family before the abolition of the French monarchy in 1792. John 1332 Euro 1350. Charles 1350 Euro 1364, Charles 1465 Euro 1466, on December 31, 1660, a few months after the restoration of Charles II to the thrones of England and Scotland, King Louis XIV proclaimed Charles' younger brother James, Duke of York, Duke of Normandy. This was probably done as a political gesture of support for James. Louis Charles 1785 Euro 1789. Duke of Normandy . In the Channel Islands, the Queen is known informally as the Duke of Normandy, notwithstanding the fact that she is a woman. The Channel Islands are the last remaining part of the former Duchy of Normandy to remain under the rule of the British monarch. Although the British monarchy apparently relinquished claims to continental Normandy and other French claims in 1259, the Channel Islands remain crown dependencies of the British Crown. The British historian Ben Pimlott noted that while Queen Elizabeth II was on a visit to mainland Normandy in May 1967, French locals began to doff their hats and shout "Vive la Duchesse!" To which the Queen supposedly replied, "Well, I am the Duke of Normandy." Both Channel Islands legislatures refer to Elizabeth II in writing as the Queen in the Right of Jersey, or the Queen in the Right of Guernsey respectively. However, the Queen is informally referred to as the Duke of Normandy. This title is used by the islanders, especially during their loyal toast, where they informally say the Queen, "our Duke," or, in French Lorraine, "notre Duke," rather than simply the Queen, as is the practice in the United Kingdom. Notes. References. External links. The Dukes of Normandy, From Rollo to William of Normandy, British Monarchy webpage about the Channel Islands, Unlow, Richard. The Dukes of Normandy and Their Origin. London, Hutchinson and Colorado, 1945.